If Blitz hadn't kept clawing at that drawer, no one would have opened it. And if no one had opened it, Rachel might have gone another year pretending the chill in the air was just normal. But dogs don't pretend. They don't rationalize. They know. And Blitz, an old retired canine with scars on his snout and eyes that had seen too much, was trying to tell her something. Not with barks, not with growls, just with his body pressed tight against that desk. His paw, his whine, the scratch that wouldn't stop. It started on a Wednesday. Rachel remembered because it was laundry day, and the dryer had stopped mid-cycle again, something her stepfather Mark promised he'd fix, but never got around to. She was upstairs folding towels when she heard it. That dull, repetitive sound coming from the study. Scratch, scratch, scratch! She tiptoed down the hallway, expecting to find the dog pawing at the back door. Maybe he needed to go out. But no. He was in the study, facing the far wall, nose buried against the oak desk drawer. Rachel blinked. Blitz? The German shepherd turned and looked at her, eyes steady, ears back. Not scared, not excited, just focused. He pawed once more at the drawer and let out a low, impatient huff. That's Mark's, Rachel said quietly. She stepped into the room, suddenly very aware of how dark it felt in there. No windows open. No sound except the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. She crouched beside Blitz and rubbed his neck. What are you looking for, boy? He didn't answer, of course, but he didn't move away either, just stared. Rachel glanced at the drawer. It was the bottom one. Always locked. She knew because she tried to open it once when looking for a stapler and got a sharp, "Don't touch that" from Mark that made her stomach twist. After that, she never tried again. But something about the way Blitz kept circling back to it, scratching, nudging, whining, it made her nervous. Not scared. Not yet. But on edge. Come on, she said, trying to coax him out. Let's go. He didn't budge. She tugged lightly at his collar. He sat. He actually sat, and wouldn't leave. Blitz had only been in their lives for 2 months. Mark had adopted him through a retired Canine Heroes program. Said it was his way of giving back. Rachel wasn't sure who he was giving back to, but she liked Blitz immediately. He wasn't like other dogs. Didn't bark unless he had a reason. Didn't beg. Didn't jump. But he watched. Always watched. Especially when Mark walked into the room. At first, Rachel thought he was just adjusting. He was older, after all. Maybe he had trauma from the field, gunfire, explosions, whatever dogs like him dealt with. But she started to notice the pattern. Whenever Mark raised his voice, even slightly, Blitz would position himself between Rachel and the sound. Whenever Mark came home late from his consulting gigs, Blitz would sniff his shoes and then walk away like he didn't like what he found. And lately, Blitz wouldn't go near Mark's study without growling, unless Rachel was nearby. That Wednesday wasn't the first time Blitz had touched the drawer, but it was the first time Rachel felt it deep in her chest. Something's wrong. That night at dinner, she watched Mark more closely. He talked too loud, laughed at his own jokes, sipped red wine like it was a stage prop. Her mom, Lila, nodded along, tired and distant, as usual. So what's up with your mutt? Mark asked, glancing at Blitz lying under the table. He clawed at my desk today like he was looking for a bone. Rachel froze. Maybe he smelled something. Yeah, probably some old food wrapper I forgot about, he said too quickly, waving his hand. Anyway, I moved the drawer contents upstairs. He's nuts. Rachel chewed slowly. She hadn't told anyone about what she saw. But he knew. He saw it in her face, maybe. Or Blitz had already told him the only way dogs can. If you believe animals have a way of sensing the truth when humans ignore it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories of courage on Heroes for Animals. The next day, she tested her theory. While Mark was at work and her mom was out shopping, she led Blitz into the study again. He went straight to the drawer, sat, whined, then pawed. Rachel scanned the room. Desk, bookshelves, filing cabinet. She remembered something. When Mark was fixing the jammed printer last year, she saw him tuck a key behind the bookshelf, under the top ledge. She checked. Nothing. She checked again, feeling along the wood. There, taped in place with yellowing electrical tape, a small brass key. Her heart pounded in her ears. She sat cross-legged in front of the drawer. Blitz pressed beside her, warm and breathing heavy, like even he knew this wasn't just curiosity anymore. She turned the key. The lock clicked open like it had been waiting. Rachel pulled open the drawer. There was no sound, not even Blitz breathing. Inside, a stack of yellowed envelopes with her name in cursive, a thick manila folder labeled restricted, a flash drive in a red silicone sleeve, and a photo, face down. She flipped the photo over and froze, not because of what she saw, but because she didn't fully understand it. Not yet. It was her. At 12, in the backyard. But something about her eyes looked off, like she was there, but not. She set it aside, opened the folder. Inside were photos, Polaroids, blurry, wrong. She couldn't tell if they were her or someone else, but they made her stomach twist. There was writing on the back of some, dates, names, times, and then the flash drive. She didn't plug it in. Not yet. Blitz let out a long, low growl. Rachel shoved everything back inside, locked the drawer, and wiped her hands on her jeans like she'd touched poison. She didn't cry. Not yet. But she knew. She knew whatever was in that drawer, whatever was on that flash drive, it wasn't just for her eyes. It was proof. And Blitz had found it before anyone else believed something was wrong. That night, Rachel barely spoke. She watched Mark more closely than ever before. The way he stood behind her. The way he touched her shoulder and gripped just a second too long. The way he winked when her mom looked away. She slept with the key under her pillow, and Blitz at her door. Rachel couldn't sleep, even with Blitz curled up outside her door, his thick tail thumping the floor every few minutes like a heartbeat. The shadows on her ceiling wouldn't stop shifting. The drawer, the key, the manila folder, the flash drive. It all played on a loop in her head. She didn't understand everything she'd seen. Not really. The photos were vague, blurred, confusing. Until they weren't. That one picture of her in the backyard, at 12 years old, staring blankly past the camera. It hadn't stopped replaying in her mind. She didn't remember that day. She didn't remember a lot from that year, and that terrified her more than anything. At 2:37 a.m., she sat up, turned on her desk lamp, and pulled the flash drive from her hoodie pocket. She held it between her fingers. Red silicone, warm from her skin. What if it was nothing? What if it was everything? She got up quietly, careful not to wake Blitz. Tiptoed to her closet and pulled out the old Chromebook her mom let her keep for school. It was slow, barely held a charge, but it still worked. She sat on the floor, back against her bed, plugged the drive in. The screen blinked, then loaded. One folder, labeled Sessions. Inside were 11 files, 10 videos, one document. Each video had a name and date, some nearly 3 years old. Her chest tightened. Her name was on 4 of them. She didn't open the first one. Couldn't. She clicked the document. It opened in Google Docs. Pages and pages of what looked like notes. Behavioral records, times. Phrases like submissive when prompted and disassociation onset observed. She felt sick. This wasn't just something Mark stumbled into. This was deliberate, clinical. She clicked the top video. The screen went black for 2 seconds. Then a blurry image filled the screen. Rachel, at 13, sitting on the living room couch, staring into nothing. She looked frozen. Her arms limp, her eyes wide but empty, like no one was home. Then his voice, Mark's, calling her by a nickname only he used, and her voice so small answering, "Yes, Daddy." Rachel slammed the laptop shut. She pressed her palms to her face, heart racing. There were no screams, no bruises, nothing obvious, but she knew. She knew. That was her. That was real. And that was all the proof the world would ever need. Blitz scratched gently at the door. She opened it, and he came in, resting his chin on her lap like he'd been waiting for this moment. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, her fingers brushing his ears. "If I tell Mom, she won't believe me. If I tell the cops, what if they don't care? Blitz didn't answer, but he didn't look away either, and that was enough. At school, Rachel was a ghost. She didn't tell anyone, not even Ava, her best friend. Not yet, not until she was sure. But something had shifted inside her. She no longer flinched when Mark hugged her too long. She didn't smile back when he made stupid jokes. She just watched, calculated. That Saturday, her mom went out to run errands. Mark was in the garage cleaning tools. Rachel took the flash drive and walked 2 blocks to Ava's house. Ava answered in sweatpants and messy hair. "Hey, you okay?" Rachel didn't say anything, just held up the flash drive. Ava's face changed instantly. "Come in." They locked Ava's bedroom door. Ava plugged the drive into her MacBook. "Wait," Rachel said, gripping her friend's arm. "Only watch the first minute, then stop." Ava nodded, clicked. The same video loaded. Rachel turned away, but she heard Ava gasp, then go silent for a full 20 seconds. When Rachel finally looked back, Ava's eyes were wet. "Oh my God," she whispered. That's you." "I don't remember any of it," Rachel said, her voice shaking. "I don't even know how long this has been happening. But he's got files, Ava. He kept records." Ava didn't blink. "We're going to the police, now!" The officer at the front desk of the precinct was a young woman with a tight ponytail and a calm voice. Rachel could barely get the words out. Ava did most of the talking. The officer took the flash drive, asked a few questions, and told them to wait. 30 minutes later, 2 detectives came out. They took Rachel into a private room. One of them, a tall black woman named Detective Price, crouched in front of her. "Rachel," she said gently, "I need to ask you something very important, and I want you to be honest. Is anyone in your house hurting you?" Rachel nodded, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Mark was arrested that night. Not in the house, not in the garage. He had tried to run. Detectives found his phone pinging off a tower heading north on I-75. A traffic stop near Dalton ended it. Inside his car, 2 burner phones, a hidden laptop, and a gym bag full of cash. And Blitz? Blitz didn't bark when the cruiser pulled up to their house with flashing lights. He stood in the front yard like a soldier at rest, waiting, watching. Rachel's mother cried for hours when she found out. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "I didn't know, Rachel, I swear to God." Rachel didn't respond. She didn't know if she believed her. Because somewhere deep down, hadn't she? Hadn't there been signs? The long showers, the quiet sobs, the way Rachel had stopped riding her bike, stopped going to sleepovers, stopped smiling. And yet no one asked why. No one except Blitz. The DA's office called it an overwhelming case. Multiple victims, years of documentation, a full digital footprint. Rachel wasn't the only one, but she had been the one who exposed it, thanks to a dog who didn't know how to quit. In the weeks that followed, Rachel moved in with her aunt and began trauma therapy. Blitz came with her. The court ruled he was more than a dog. He was evidence, a protector, a hero. Rachel couldn't sleep without him. Couldn't even breathe right unless she felt the weight of his body near her bed. He'd become her shadow, not because he was trained to be, but because he chose her and never stopped choosing her. The courthouse smelled like wood polish and nerves. Rachel sat stiffly on the hallway bench, her knees together, palms sweating through her dress. Blitz lay at her feet, head resting on one paw, eyes half closed but alert. His presence grounded her more than anything else could. They'd offered to keep her out of the courtroom, said she could submit her testimony by video or have a child advocate speak on her behalf. But Rachel had said no. She needed to do this. For herself, for the other girls, for the Rachel who used to stare blankly into a camera and call her abuser Daddy. It had been 3 months since the arrest. Mark Whitaker was being charged with 12 counts of child sexual abuse, 2 of them felonies carrying maximum sentences. The flash drive Blitz had led her to became the central piece of evidence. The photos, the sessions, the documents with cold language and calculated details, everything added up to years of systematic, orchestrated abuse. But what shocked the public more was this. The man on trial had been on a child protection board 5 years ago. He ran workshops on boundary education. He hosted local fundraisers for foster care reform. He was the perfect predator because he didn't look like one. And Rachel had been the child nobody noticed. Until Blitz scratched open the truth. Blitz had officially been granted emotional support designation after her therapist filed paperwork with the court. That meant he could sit beside her during testimony. People didn't question it anymore. The moment photos of the dog began circulating online, his grizzled fur, scarred muzzle, and those deeply human eyes, Blitz became a national symbol of silent courage. CNN ran a segment. The Today Show called him the dog who knew. People mailed letters, care packages, blankets with his name embroidered. Rachel didn't care about any of it. She just wanted to get through today. The courtroom was crowded, not just with press and lawyers, but with faces she didn't recognize. Neighbors, church people, even a few old teachers who'd ignored her slipping grades and hollow eyes. All of them wanted to witness something. Maybe justice, maybe shame. Rachel walked to the witness stand, Blitz beside her. He sat. She stood. A glass of water waited next to the mic. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor said. "Rachel Marie Whitaker," she said, her voice steady. "And how old are you?" 15. The prosecutor looked at her gently. "Do you remember the first time you felt unsafe in your home?" A pause. Then Rachel nodded. "I was 9. The room fell silent. You could hear someone cough in the back row. The hum of the AC. Blitz shifted but didn't make a sound. Rachel didn't cry. She told them everything. Not in gruesome detail. Her therapist had warned her about re-traumatization, but with clarity and courage. How the sessions began. The rewards, the punishments, the whispers at night, the camera. And how, years later, Blitz scratched open a drawer and everything unraveled. Mark didn't look at her. Not once. He sat across the room behind his defense table, face red, jaw tight, as if he were the one being humiliated. Rachel stared at him only once. When she said, "I used to believe I was imagining it, that it was my fault, that maybe this was just what families were." She looked away after that, because she didn't need to see him anymore. After her testimony, the judge recessed for the afternoon. Rachel stepped outside, where Ava was waiting with iced coffee and sunflower seeds, her comfort snack. Blitz walked beside her, tail low, pressing close when the news cameras tried to approach. Ava didn't speak. She just hugged her, for a long time. That night, the news ran the headline, "15-year-old survivor breaks silence in landmark abuse trial." People shared hashtags. Politicians tweeted support. The mayor's office issued a statement praising Rachel's bravery. But none of that made Rachel feel strong. Not really. What did? Blitz curling beside her bed that night. Blitz refusing to leave her side even when she got sick from anxiety. Blitz nudging her hand when nightmares woke her up at 3 a.m. Because courage, she realized, wasn't just standing up in court. It was waking up the next day. It was not letting shame win. 2 weeks later, the verdict came in. Guilty, on all 12 counts. Life sentence, no parole. Rachel didn't attend the final hearing. She and her aunt had driven north for the weekend, stayed in a cabin by Lake Lanier. Her therapist called it emotional decompression. The air smelled like pine. The water was quiet. Blitz chased sticks like he was young again, and Rachel sat on the porch, barefoot in the sun, finally breathing deep. When they returned, something unexpected happened. A letter from one of the other girls in the videos. She was now 19. Her name was Jenna. It read, "I never thought anyone would find out. I thought it ended with me. I thought no one would believe us. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for that dog." Rachel cried for the first time in weeks. Blitz laid his head in her lap like always, and Rachel whispered, "You saved more than just me." Heroes for Animals, the rescue group that had placed Blitz with them, reached out too. They invited Rachel and Blitz to speak at a fall fundraising gala. She almost said no. Public speaking still made her tremble. Crowds reminded her of courtrooms. But her aunt said, "It's not for them. It's for the next girl." So she said yes. The event was small, held at a rustic barn-turned-community center in Georgia. Fairy lights, apple cider, folk music on acoustic guitar. Rachel stepped up to the mic in jeans and sneakers. No makeup, no styling, just herself. Blitz sat beside her, ears forward. She took a breath and began. "I didn't grow up thinking I'd ever be on a stage. I didn't grow up thinking the person who was supposed to protect me would be the one I needed protection from. I didn't grow up thinking a dog would be the only one to notice something was wrong. But that's what happened. His name is Blitz. He used to be a K-9 officer. Now he's my best friend. And if he hadn't clawed at that drawer, I might still be trapped. So I'm here to say, listen to your animals, listen to your gut, and believe the quiet ones. Because sometimes silence is where the worst things hide." The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Blitz barked once, loud, clear, proud. Back home, Rachel pinned a newspaper clipping to her bedroom wall. The headline read, "K-9 Hero Exposes Secret Drawer, Saves Teen from Years of Abuse." But Rachel didn't think of herself as a victim anymore. She was someone who had survived. And Blitz wasn't just a hero. He was family, the one who heard what no one else wanted to hear, and never stopped until she was safe. Healing doesn't announce itself. There's no music swell. No inspirational monologue, no sudden moment where it all gets better. Instead, healing shows up quietly, like the first morning Rachel didn't wake up in a panic, or the time she laughed at a joke in biology class and didn't feel guilty afterward. It came slowly, gently, and often with Blitz curled at her feet. Her aunt's house in the suburbs of Marietta had become home. Not just a place she stayed, but a place she felt safe. It smelled like lemon cleaner and warm bread, and the bookshelves had names like The Body Keeps the Score and How Dogs Heal Trauma. Rachel had her own room, painted soft green, with a wide window that faced the backyard. Blitz had a memory foam dog bed beside hers, but most nights he still slept at the foot of her bed, snoring softly like an old man who'd seen enough of the world. Therapy was hard. Not because she didn't like her therapist. Dr. Lee was patient and calm and never rushed her, but because trauma doesn't sit in neat paragraphs. It spills. It contradicts itself. One session, Rachel brought in the photo from the drawer, the one with her staring into space, age 12, sunlit and haunted. She placed it on the table. "I don't remember this," she whispered. Dr. Lee nodded. "That's okay. I feel like I should." "You remember enough." Rachel stared at the photo. "Is that what dissociation is?" "Yes," Dr. Lee said. "It's how your brain tried to protect you when no one else did." Rachel didn't talk about the trial at school. Most of her new classmates didn't know who she was, and that's how she liked it. But Ava visited every weekend, and Blitz had become a familiar sight in the school counselor's office, where he waited for Rachel during her quiet hours. There was one student, though, a girl named Mia, who sat beside her in homeroom and said one day, without looking up from her sketchpad, "I saw your speech online." Rachel froze. Mia didn't push, just added, "You said something about believing the quiet ones. That stuck with me." She turned her sketchpad around. It was a pencil drawing of Blitz. Eyes focused, proud, ears perked. Rachel smiled for real. The emails started trickling in after the Heroes for Animals gala. First one, then 5, then dozens. Some were from survivors, others from therapists, school counselors, even police officers. They all said the same thing in different ways. "Thank you for speaking up. Your dog gave me hope." "I've never told anyone this before, but..." Her aunt suggested setting boundaries. Dr. Lee helped her write an auto response. "Thank you for sharing your truth. I believe you. I may not be able to respond personally, but I see your courage." That one sentence helped people more than Rachel expected. One afternoon in October, a counselor from a youth center in Chattanooga emailed. She was organizing a workshop called Voices That Broke the Silence, focused on animal-assisted recovery for trauma survivors. She asked if Rachel and Blitz would be willing to come speak. Rachel almost said no. Then she thought about Mia's sketch, and Jenna's letter, and all the girls who hadn't been believed. So she said yes. The center was smaller than she expected. Just a red brick building off a quiet road with murals of sunflowers and quotes painted on the walls. Inside, 25 girls between the ages of 10 and 18 sat in a circle. Most didn't speak. A few avoided eye contact. Rachel knew that feeling. She walked in slowly, Blitz by her side. They sat in the center. She didn't use a microphone this time, just her voice. "I was you," she said. "I sat in rooms like this and thought no one could possibly understand." She paused, glancing at the dog. "But this guy, he did. He knew something was wrong before I did." She told them the story, not the courtroom version, the real version. The fear, the freezing, the guilt that stuck to her ribs, and how Blitz wouldn't let her stay silent anymore. When she finished, no one clapped, but a girl in the back, maybe 13, walked up after everyone had gone. She didn't say a word. She just hugged Rachel so tightly that it made her ribs hurt, and Rachel didn't let go. That night back at the motel, she cried for the first time in weeks. Not from pain, from release. Her aunt helped her set up a private blog called The Drawer We Opened. It wasn't for followers or fame. It was for her. Each post began the same way. "This isn't everything, but it's a piece." She wrote about the trial, about therapy, about how it felt to see her name trending on Twitter and still feel invisible in the mirror. She wrote about Blitz, his training, his trauma, his dignity. People started sharing her posts, not because they were polished, because they were real. That winter, Time magazine reached out. They wanted to feature Rachel and Blitz in their Voices of Courage end-of-year issue. Rachel agreed on one condition: no glamorizing, no exploitation, just the truth. The photographer came to her aunt's house. Rachel wore jeans and a hoodie. Blitz sat beside her on the porch, sunlight bouncing off his fur. The article headline read, "The Dog Who Listened and the Girl Who Fought Back." Rachel didn't read the comments. She didn't need to. In January, Jenna came to visit. They met at a cafe halfway between their cities. Jenna wore a denim jacket with pins all over it. She hugged Rachel like they were old friends. They sat for hours, shared stories, compared scars. laughed, cried. Rachel realized something important that day. She wasn't just surviving. She was building something, a life, a voice, a purpose. And she wasn't doing it alone. Blitz was getting older, slower. He'd started limping on rainy days and took longer naps on the porch, but he still followed Rachel everywhere, still lifted his head when her voice broke, still placed his paw on her leg like he was saying, "I've got you." One night, she knelt beside him and whispered, "You didn't just save me. You gave me back to myself." He licked her cheek, like always. The vet said it was his back leg. Degenerative myelopathy, slow, progressive, and irreversible. Rachel sat in the waiting room, knees bouncing, trying not to cry. Blitz was still in the back, getting x-rays. She stared at the yellow walls, the Happy Paws posters, the jar of milk bones on the counter. Everything in that place screamed joy. But all she felt was dread. "He's getting older," the vet had said gently. "You'll start to see more weakness in his hindquarters. He'll lose coordination. It won't be painful, just limiting." Limiting. That word haunted her, because Blitz had never once been limited by anything. Not by fences, not by fear, not by the horrors he must have seen in his canine days. He broke open the drawer that changed her life. He stood beside her in court. He pulled her through nightmares. And now he needed her. The ramp came first. Her aunt built it one weekend with help from a neighbor, laying down grip strips and lining the sides with twinkle lights so Blitz could see it better at night. Rachel sewed booties for his back paws when he started dragging them on the tile. She learned how to lift him properly without hurting his hips. It wasn't just caretaking, it was love. Real bone-deep love. Every morning she'd sit beside him on the porch and say, "One more sunrise, okay?" And every time, Blitz would thump his tail like he agreed. Winter in Georgia wasn't brutal, but it was cold enough to stiffen joints. Blitz started sleeping more, moving less. But even as his body slowed, his instincts never dulled. That's why, when Rachel got the letter, he was the first to know something was off. It came on a Tuesday, just a plain white envelope in the mailbox, no return address. The handwriting was careful, too careful. Inside a single sheet of paper. "You think it's over? There are more of us than you know. Stay quiet." Rachel stared at it for 10 whole minutes. Her chest tightened. Her hands shook. Blitz growled before she even looked up. She folded the letter and locked it in the drawer, not the one Blitz once uncovered, but the new one her aunt gave her in a desk that didn't carry ghosts. Then she called Detective Price. The investigation opened quietly. Federal agents had already been combing through Mark Whitaker's contacts, but this letter confirmed what they feared. He hadn't been acting alone. Other men, other victims, another ring. Rachel felt the walls closing in again. Blitz wouldn't leave her side. 2 weeks later, it happened. Rachel was walking Blitz through the neighborhood trail like always. Slow pace, plenty of rest stops. The wind carried that sharp February bite, but Blitz seemed calm, nose in the breeze, tail relaxed. They were halfway home when Rachel noticed a white van parked just past the trailhead. No plates, tinted windows, driver still behind the wheel. Blitz saw it too. His ears snapped forward. He stood, just stood, strong, focused. For the first time in weeks, he looked like the old Blitz again, every inch a canine warrior. Rachel's skin prickled. She turned around, heart pounding. That's when the van door opened, and a man stepped out. Not fast, not threatening, but something about him screamed wrong. Rachel froze. The man smiled. "Hey, you're Rachel, right?" Blitz stepped in front of her and growled. Low, deep, dangerous. Rachel backed up. The man kept talking. "Just wanted to talk. Heard you're writing some kind of blog. Maybe be careful what you post." Blitz barked, sharp and commanding. The man flinched. Rachel pulled out her phone and hit record. "You need to leave." The man paused, then chuckled. "You think that mutt can protect you forever?" That's when Blitz lunged, not to bite, not to attack, to chase. He bolted toward the van, barking like thunder, teeth bared. The man dove back inside and peeled out, tires screeching. Blitz stood in the road, chest heaving, triumphant. Rachel ran to him, falling to her knees. "Blitz!" she cried. "You crazy old dog!" He leaned into her, tail wagging, but something wasn't right. That night, Blitz couldn't stand. He tried hard. His back legs collapsed underneath him like a bridge giving out. Rachel called the vet in tears. They said it was time. They gave her 2 days. 2 days to say goodbye. She fed him steak, let him sleep in her bed. played old videos of him as a police dog, jumping hurdles, sniffing out narcotics, saving lives before he ever saved hers. Her aunt called the local news. They offered to do a story, a tribute. Rachel said no. This wasn't for cameras. This was for them. On the last day, she and Blitz drove to the lake. The same cabin by Lake Lanier where they'd gone after the trial. She spread a blanket in the grass, read to him from her blog, let him sniff the wind one more time. And when the vet arrived, she held him in her lap, stroked his ears, whispered, "You did good, boy. You did so good." And Blitz closed his eyes and let go. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. Some days, Rachel woke up convinced she heard him snoring. Other days, she couldn't eat. She avoided the porch, avoided photos, couldn't even look at his bowl. But slowly, so slowly, she found ways to honor him. She created a scholarship in his name, the Blitz Fund for Animal-Assisted Healing. She published a collection of blog posts as a book, The Drawer We Opened. And on the last page, she wrote, "This story began with silence, but it ends with truth. And with the paw prints of a dog who never stopped protecting me, even when his legs couldn't carry him anymore." 1 month later, the FBI confirmed a second wave of arrests. 5 men. One of them had connections to Mark. Rachel didn't know their names, didn't need to. All she cared about was this. No more silence. No more secrets. On what would have been Blitz's 11th birthday, she visited the Canine Memorial in Atlanta. She left a photo. The one of him sitting beside her on the courthouse steps, chest proud, tail curled, watching the world like he owned it. She wrote on the back, "Not just a dog, my beginning." Spring came quietly. No fanfare. No thunderous return. Just a soft blush of green across the trees, birdsong in the morning, and warm light sliding across the porch where Blitz used to nap. Rachel sat there now, a book open in her lap, but she wasn't reading. She was remembering. It had been 8 weeks since Blitz passed. 8 weeks since she'd whispered goodbye with her face buried in his fur. And yet, not a single day had gone by where she didn't feel him somehow. Beside her, behind her, inside her. Grief, she'd learned, doesn't disappear. It just grows quieter. The email came on a Monday. Subject line, "We think you're ready." It was from Heroes for Animals, the same organization that had placed Blitz with her family years ago. After hearing about Blitz's passing and Rachel's new fund in his honor, they wanted to partner with her on something bigger. They were launching a youth survivor outreach program across 4 states. Animal-assisted therapy, canine companionship, peer-led workshops. And they wanted Rachel to be its face. "We know it's a lot," the director wrote, "but you already changed so many lives just by telling the truth. Imagine what happens if you lead." Rachel closed the laptop and stared out the window. A year ago, she couldn't speak without shaking. Now, people were asking her to lead. She wasn't sure she was ready. But Blitz had taught her something important. Sometimes you step up not because you're fearless, but because you can't afford to stay silent anymore. That weekend, she traveled to Gainesville to visit a local rescue center. Not as a guest speaker, as a potential adopter. She hadn't planned on it. Not really. She told herself she was just visiting, just helping promote the center's work. But the moment she stepped into the kennel wing, something stirred in her chest. Not grief, not guilt. Something like hope. That's when she saw him. Crate 4B, German Shepherd mix. Big, awkward ears. One blue eye, one brown. His name tag read Remy. He didn't bark. Didn't whine. Just stared at her like he'd been waiting. The staff told her he was a stray, found wandering the side of a highway. No chip. No collar. Likely abandoned. He's smart, they said, but skittish. Doesn't like loud noises. Only bonds with one person at a time. Rachel knelt beside the crate. "Hi, Remy," she whispered. He stepped forward, then gently rested his paw against the metal gate. By the following week, he was home. Her aunt helped her set up a new bed, new food bowls, a leash, a clicker. Rachel didn't expect Remy to be Blitz. She didn't want him to be. He was his own soul, quiet, sensitive, curious. He followed her everywhere, just like Blitz had. But when she cried in the middle of the night, Remy didn't nudge her. He just sat beside her and waited. That was enough. Rachel's blog returned stronger than ever. Only now it had expanded. More survivor voices, guest posts, mental health resources, partnerships with shelters and school counselors. Every Friday, she posted a photo of a rescue animal with the hashtag #BlitzFriday, honoring the dogs who stay when the world walks away. Thousands joined. By summer, the Heroes for Animals program had launched in 3 counties. Rachel spoke at town halls, met with therapists and foster care workers. She visited group homes and gave out journals, always with a note inside. You are not your silence, and you are not alone. Remy traveled with her now. Still shy, still unsure, but steady. In August, she was invited to speak at the National Child Advocacy Conference in Washington, D.C. It was the biggest audience she'd ever faced, over 2,000 people from all 50 states. She stood behind the podium, heart pounding, wearing a navy blazer over her favorite jeans. Remy lay at her feet, head resting on one paw. She opened with a story, not about Blitz, not about Mark, but about the day she almost stayed quiet, and the dog who wouldn't let her. "I'm not here to tell you I'm healed," she said, voice steady. "I'm here to tell you that healing is loud some days and silent others, but it's always real." She spoke for 20 minutes. When she finished, they stood, the whole room, and someone shouted, "For Blitz!" She smiled, not through tears, but through pride. Back home, she planted a tree in the backyard, a white oak, strong, steady, slow-growing. At the base, she placed a stone plaque, to the drawer that opened, to the bark that saved, to the silence that finally spoke. She didn't need a grave. She had a future. That fall, a girl named Kayla messaged her through the blog. She was 13, said she thought she might be going through what Rachel had. She'd read the blog at school, showed it to her counselor. Now she was getting help. Rachel cried reading it, then replied, "I believe you. I'm proud of you. And I'm here." That night, she sat on the porch, Remy beside her, the wind brushing her face. She whispered, "You did it, Blitz. You started something that won't stop." Remy leaned into her, and for the first time since Blitz left, Rachel laughed out loud. This story didn't end with punishment. It didn't end with guilt. It didn't even end with grief. It ended with movement, with voices, with paw prints on porch steps and names written in courtroom records and new beginnings that once felt impossible. Rachel Whitaker didn't just survive. She became. And Blitz? Blitz was never just a dog. He was the first heartbeat in a new rhythm. Thank you for following this story, from the first scratch at the drawer to the final page. If you've ever felt silenced, ignored, or invisible, please know your voice matters. Your story matters. We'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if your dog scratched open a drawer and the truth came tumbling out? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please share it and subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more real stories of courage, survival, and the dogs who lead the way.